Good afternoon, space dwellers. This is Jim Pine with Agents of Aquarius, and I'm joined by my brother,
Present, Matty D, agent.
Agent Matty D. He even changed his name at the bottom of the screen without being asked today. This is episode 10 of Agents of Aquarius. You have reached us. You have found us. Please spread the word if you like this podcast, if you like the message we deliver. If you can also share, like, subscribe, all those things that every podcast asks you to do that nobody really does. It helps us out a lot, and it doesn't cost you anything. So here we are, episode 10. The world is completely at peace. We found a stabilizing energy that's maintained everybody's equilibrium, and that's it.
The new age is upon us.
That's it. It all clicked. There was an eclipse, and then everything switched, and every war stopped all at that same moment. We've reached the climax of this idea, and here we are, blessed.
We call our place fantasy land.
Yeah.
Thanks for the image, though. I like the image. It's a lot better than the real world we're living in at the moment. That's for sure. And I feel like we're going to start by not talking about the real world. Isn't that something? You had a really cool story about an ancient structure, and I would love to talk about that and not talk about the world as it is, because we're inundated by it. We're flooded by all that information. We hear it every time you turn on any piece of media. So tell me about this old ass building.
Okay. So we're just going to start out with break the news segment. This is where we're just going to kind of look at the news. Now, this article titled Scientists find structures from before Homo sapiens existed. Now, this is I looked for it elsewhere. I couldn't find it elsewhere. But this is in futurism.com. That's where they're reporting this giant story. So on October 14th, this was reported. The finding has changed how we think about our early ancestors. So, archaeologists from Europe and Africa have uncovered the oldest wood structures ever discovered, dating back almost 500,000 years, meaning an unknown species of hominins predated us, Homo sapiens, was presumably responsible for its creation. The researchers laid out their findings in a recent paper in the science journal Nature, where they reported they had found the wood structures of two interlocking logs joined traversively by an intentionally cut notch. This was at a site in Kalambo Falls, Zambia, and dated it to a distant 476,000 years ago.
Wow, a long time.
Yeah, at the same location, which scientists say they found this foundation it was basically for a dwelling. They also found 4 tools, a digging stick, a cut log with a wedge, a notch branch. They also later so they weren't the first, like later on Homo sapiens stuff was starting to be found at Colombo Falls. And that's what they're telling us out of the University of Liverpool. They say this finding has changed how we think about our early ancestors.
That's cool. Makes you wonder what the Earth was like back then. Do you think plate tectonics do anything in 500,000 years, or do you need longer for that business?
For things who knows? Like, who knows when the continents moved? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know. Just 12,000 years ago, the last ice age ended, or 10,000 BC, 12,000 BC, the last ice age ended, and the all that water was trapped in the ice sheets, and the ocean levels were
400 feet lower.
400 feet lower, right?
Yeah,
right. There's a whole world that's underwater now.
400 feet worth of
It's
land all over the world. Well, that's where they find a lot of structures in low in water covered areas around the Bimini Road, for one.
The continental shelf was
The continental shelf would have been about 400 foot.
Yeah, it was above water.
Yeah, they're finding all these structures in this water. This it's not too deep. And apparently, if you listen to stuff from like Randall Carlson, like he's saying that there was some type of mega heat event, like basically a meteor must have hit up in the Canada area, I believe,
On the ice sheet.
On the ice sheet, and then melts in a huge amount of water in like in a crazy. He's like, like this is beyond apocalypse. This is, you know, the amounts of water that cut through mountains. If you drive to like when you see it's like kind of sheer, this is that water that went through and probably just cut those things clean.
Yeah, yeah. Randall talks about Dry Falls, Washington, and you see this tiny little river and waterfall, but there's a cliff that's way many times bigger than the water course. Mm-hmm. And you look at that water and you're like, how could that thing cut out so much? And apparently it's from that mega flood that Randall Carlson was describing.
And that's only approximately 12,000 years ago.
Yeah, so all that 500,000 years ago, who knows what the Earth looked like back then?
Well, it was colder. Apparently, things were like there was more ice. The ice had come all the way down like past Canada almost.
Well, do we know how long that ice lasted? Like, wasn't that 100,000-year event? That
I'm
ice
not
age
exactly
or something
sure.
like that.
But they're talking about this structure that was built is 476,000 years, ago.
Which is super interesting because if it's before Homo sapiens, who was it? Was it Neanderthals or someone like that?
Well, I was just listening to somebody speaking about Homo nomen. Oh my goodness. It was on Joe Rogan's podcast, one of his most recent podcasts. And it was the Brian Murarescu. Brian, it's episode 2047 on Rogan. He was talking about this other hominid they have. Homo no, I can't think of it. I'd never heard this before until then. And it's these people they found, and it's probably about then, around that time. They're starting to find.
Did they know anything about these people? Like, were they taller than us, shorter than us?
I think they were very similar. Yeah, I don't. Dude. Hold on.
Hold it.
Well, you talk about
here, how about this?
Carry it, yeah.
Australopithecine was one of those other hominid species, but they were hobbits. They were like 3 feet tall. It is the coolest shit ever. It's only some tens of thousands of years that species, saw the end. But it's just crazy. It's like, we love Tolkien as a work of fiction, but then our own world, of course, is stranger than fiction. Australopithecines was a race of hominids that were like 3 feet tall, and there's a lot of different races of humans that were in that small, size range. Like hobbits were all over this planet at one point. I think that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's my just fucking computer stopped working, so that's fun.
Yeah, your screen is frozen.
Is it?
On my end, yeah.
Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine. Technology is not your friend today.
Nah, it's really not. I think my internet just went down.
No, you're back. You're back.
Okay. But there was a really interesting. Okay, now I can just click on it here if it'll let me. Oh, there we go. He just wrote this book called The Immortality Key. The Secret History of the Religions with No Name. He talks a lot about plant medicine and the different types of things they were doing, nightshade, family, drugs.
This is the guy that was doing the interview?
Yeah, he was on Rogan. He'd been on it before. It was really interesting because they'd actually met up, I think kind of by chance, when Rogan went with his family to to um, Italy, and this guy
Uh-huh.
was there, and this guy's like a mad historian. So he's taking Rogan around to all these things, these places, dude. He took him to oh my God, my brain just doesn't want to work. Like these Dionysian temples, and he's describing it all. And it's an amazing interview. I highly recommend it.
Imagine that, getting to travel to all those ancient places with the tour guide who knows all the best history. That'd be great.
Oh yeah, dude. It just absolutely amazing. Um and my brain literally is just not working right now.
Well, let me
The
ask you
things
a
they were talking
question.
about.
If your brain's not working, did you find out who these homos were? These guys that were living 500,000 years ago?
No, I'm trying to look on his website, and it's just not. Um like I
Right, but
said,
it was a non-Homo sapien.
no,
So,
yeah,
but it,
it's definitely off the shoot of Homo sapiens. Absolutely, 100%. Homo.
but think about it. Like, who were these guys? If we know who the hobbits um, were they elves? Were they dwarves or orcs? Or were they just some other species of hominid? But it'd be fun to get a good description of what they were like.
Yeah, well, listen to the fucking Rogan episode.
All
Unfortunately, I'm failing miserably right now, dude. And I
right,
will.
we're all gonna tune into one
Episode
of the
20,
many.
episode 2047. I thought it was really interesting. If you're interested in what we're just to this article we just brought up, you would love this interview because it's just amazing what it goes back to.
Yeah, yeah. And, maybe something else kind of fun to talk about was this business of what happened 12 or 10, 12, 14,000 years ago with this big earth changing event that happened. It was, the name Robert Schoch. He was the guy who worked with John Anthony West with redating the age of the pyramids. He's gone off on a slightly different tangent than what Graham Hancock has for a long time been in the school of a comet hit the ice sheets and caused a catastrophic melt and a dramatic change in the environment. Um, Robert Schoch is in a different school of thought that says there was an event from the sun because there's like special isotopes or something that are still lingering within, the ice core samples. So, but ultimately something happened to really affect the climate in that those ice sheets melted off in a dramatic fashion at a high rate of speed. There's the traditional school of thought in the geology world is what they call incrementalism, that everything happens just, one rainstorm at a time, one dust storm at a time. But there's also the school of catastrophism that says shit happens all at once. And probably the reality is simply both. Like a lot of things we settle on, it is both, because there's always rainstorms and dust storms. There's always stuff that's eroding slowly at its own pace. But then it looks like there are these moments of giant catastrophes where change happens really abruptly. Sometimes it's a volcanic eruption in 500 AD, and you get your dark age because all the soot put into the atmosphere blocks out the sun for a year. And sometimes it's on a bigger scale, like if the ice sheets melted all in a hurry. And some of these guys, like Randall Carlson, I don't know where he sources this information or if you can even source it correctly, but he says that the sea levels in some cases rose as much as 30 feet in a single day. Now, he claims to have a way of figuring that out. Maybe it's just like, the evidence of the shoreline that is underwater where you could see a trace of something like that. I don't actually recall. But if sea levels rose 30 feet in a day, that would be dramatic. You want to talk about Miami being underwater, it quite literally would be underwater, as opposed to the creeping incrementalism of what's happening with the climate nowadays. These were
Um,
big, big changes.
I mean, that's what I was trying to say earlier. Like they're finding all of these in India or off the coast of India, Sri Lanka,
Yeah.
in the United States, the Caribbean. They're finding in these low waters, like 30 feet or less water. So like these things were probably at the edge of the sea.
Mm-hmm.
the fucking seas raised because of a giant catastrophic event, like meteor, like, can end the planet kind of thing, like really fuck everything up. And that would have just fucking destroyed, just giant tidal waves going throughout and just flattening and taking 30 feet back, not just
Yeah.
30 feet back to the land, but like we're covering everything at 30 feet. That's ours now.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. There's even a more recent one. Not too long ago, someone using Google Earth discovered what's called the Burkle crater. It's in the Indian Ocean, kind of in the northwest corner off the coast of Madagascar, south of the Arabian Peninsula, like that area. And this is a crater 2 miles underwater, and the crater itself is something like 12 miles or 12 kilometers in diameter. I forget which one, but it's really big. And there's evidence of on Madagascar of the ocean washing over that country with 400-foot waves. And the Burkle crater is new. The research on it's new, but I think this is all scientifically based. It's not some stretch of the imagination. But if you think about that for a second, 5,000 years ago was 3,000 BC. Somewhere back around that time, Moses was running around the desert, according to the Bible. But if an impactor hit the northwest Indian Ocean, it landed in 2 miles of water and made a 12-mile diameter crater. You can be sure there's some massive tidal waves that were washing over all kinds of stuff. So I know religions love to hook other people's religions and make it their story, or claim a natural event as being done by their God. The whole story of Moses and the Bible sounds like one of those, like this Burkle crater thing happened. The tidal waves washed around, the Red Sea parted or some shit like that. And it turned into their God did this thing. But it looks like there's just good scientific evidence to say that the Earth got nailed 5,000 years ago and there were some massive tidal waves.
Yeah, it definitely did. And we know that even like we said, 12,000 years ago.
A bigger one, a way bigger impact.
He was calling it homonomo, but that's just hominin in Spanish, it looks like. But he was calling it, that's the name of that homo. It's homonomo.
What'd you call me?
A homonomo, homonimo, homono. Fucking dude, I'm literally because I was like looking at I'm like, how did I just change my whole internet to Spanish? Like I was like, I don't understand what's going on. But I found that that's what he was saying. That was that homo species, homonomo.
Well, that's cool, man. Those people were building. They were building buildings. The idea that only Homo sapiens built houses, that clearly is not the case.
Well, they're saying even more than that. I believe he was saying they found vessels that belong to them.
Mm-hmm.
And when tested these vessels, now they're starting to test Homo sapiens old vessels. It's just going to take a lot of work. But with mass spectrometers, I believe they have ones that you can do there's different types, and he's doing that, and he's taking the chemicals out of these ritual cups they have. They're not just drinking cups, they're ritual cups, and they're finding like divinorum, or there's like these different plants that are nightshade family.
That's Salvia divinorum.
Not
is
salvia.
A plant. Is
no,
it in that family?
Datura or something like that.
Oh, Sacred
like,
Datura. That isn't that a moonflower?
Yes. Yeah, it's a moonflower, but it's also it's a nightshade family. But like the Torah, they're starting to find like different psychedelics. They were putting these cocktails together of
half a million
psychedelics
years ago.
Well,
And
I don't
Gavin
know that
Newsom
that's when
knows
that
better
is.
to outlaw that shit. Okay.
I don't know when they were finding they were finding these, but they're saying that there was this other Homo species and that they were doing these rituals with psychedelics.
Awesome.
That was
awesome. I love it.
Long way to get there.
I like where there is.
Yeah.
You and I have had a lot of experience with psychedelics. It happens at this stage of my life. I'm just not into it. But maybe I will again someday. But I know the value of that stuff. I think they're fantastic for a person's development.
They can be wonderful for people. We're not recommending anything. And it's a personal journey and personal experience.
There you
It's
go.
another way to see through the veils of consciousness. and it can do an amazing amount of healing. But that's that's a different program.
Yeah.
Or behind a
So
paywall.
so these guys were building houses. They clearly had at least pottery or something to make their vessels. They knew that psychedelics were a thing. These sound like intelligent people. Imagine living in a world like we talk about our races. You're black, you're white, you're this, you're that. But it's not that long ago that Homo sapiens were sharing space with Neanderthals, with Australopithecines, like with big guys, little guys, just like dramatically different peoples. Imagine that world. That would be an interesting place to live.
I mean, we are doing it now. I mean, I'm not saying the Neanderthals here. It's just there's obviously different races here on this planet. I don't know if they all originate from the same. I don't know the origin story because they won't let me in the fucking Vatican to find out. But I don't know exactly how it all pans out. But there's obviously people are very different. There's people that can be very different, very dramatic. If you take a Kenyan, like a sub-Saharan African person, maybe, and then like a Celtic person, like from the way up north, like Sweden, Finland,
Mm-hmm.
these other giants, these big people, they seem to be from they're cut from a little bit different cloth. Maybe they're all in the image of a creator, but they're all like a little different. And
Mm-hmm.
we're supposed to be told it all comes from one thing originally. We're apes. We don't have that key, unfortunately. It's all theory. It's a coincidence theory. But
It's a coincidence theory. Yeah,
that's not
and mind
proof.
you, like there's apes now running the earth,
Yes.
and there's us, but all that other stuff, that all those evolutionary lines, they just happen to not be here.
Bro, that's the grand fucking the grand the Nephilim. I'll just fucking call it that instead of trying to be all cool with words. The Nephilim did something. That's where you go back to Enlil and Enki. You go back to these giants. They're written like, you know, pre-Sumerian texts. The book of Enoch kind of gets into that, which is a lost book of the Bible, I believe.
Yeah, even the Bible talks about the Watchers,
Yeah. So it seems
and
like,
the Bible talks about the Nephilim too. We talked about that on the show before. Talk about the Nephilim in a church, maybe bring a bunch of people like us in there.
bro, I picked up the Bible the other day. I was reading it, start reading it. They're talking about the firmament like right away in the King James Bible. This shit's like right in the beginning. They're like with the first pages, like they're talking about, oh, this is a firmament, and like this is why it's like, whoa. I was like, I want to try to read this, not to be a Christian. I was like, I want to see what they're putting out here. Like, what's this? What are these words they're putting out? I was very
Well, do you
interested.
want to explain that word, firmament?
Well, firmaments, that is weird because that now comes back again in Project Fishbowl.
Yeah,
Would that
yeah,
be the correct
yeah.
term
When
for
we're nuking the atmosphere.
it? In the I wish I had the Bible right here, but firmament in a dictionary, Oxford language, the heavens or the sky, especially when regarded as a tangible thing. A sphere or worldview as a collection of people. Their thing is also that's
Well,
not
it's weird that they put sphere in there and then went to something very different, or worldview. Like those are two really different things.
well, I don't know why they're even using it. They're just saying it's similar to the sky, heavens, the blue.
Well,
The
how about this? Conspiracy Land says the firmament is a dome above us that you can't get past. And that's what ties us back to this Operation Fishbowl business. Because apparently, once we had rocket technology, we started to go up as high as we could and hit a barrier, which the Bible called the firmament. And Conspiracy Land goes on to say that we couldn't get past that barrier with our rocket. So we started to blast it with nukes to try blow a hole in it. That's what Operation Fishbowl was. But what does Conspiracy Land know? Those sons of bitches get everything wrong.
Operation Fishbowl was a series of high altitude nuclear tests in 1962 that were carried out by the United States as part of a larger Operation Dominic. They were just saying they were basically doing flight testing for the nukes. Thing is, Yeah, it was 31 nuclear test explosions.
Wait, it says they're doing flight testing for nukes, but they blew up the nukes. Like, what do you?
Flight test vehicles were designated and manufactured by no, they were blowing up the nukes.
Yeah,
They were
yeah,
doing it
yeah.
was like flight tests on the nukes. That's what they were saying they were doing. But they were sending them up and they just kept hitting. They couldn't get out.
That's what conspiracy land says. Not
Yes.
if you're reading Wikipedia, just so everyone knows, it doesn't say that in there.
No,
But
definitely not.
that's what conspiracy land says. The conclusion of Operation Fishbowl was that you couldn't get past a certain point. Even you couldn't blow your way past it.
I mean, that all pulls you right down to Antarctic, you know. That opens up that land because the North Pole, people have been up there. That's not as protected, but Antarctic's protected.
Yeah, apparently you can't fly a plane there if you want to, because you have to register your flight path with, all the organizations that track flights to keep people safe. But apparently you can't just do a flyover of Antarctica without getting permission or a permit or something like that. Because the truth is, I've never heard of someone just chartering a plane and flying
You
across the South Pole and over the other side of
you
the
you,
continent.
you can't do it. They have military aircraft that will not allow you to do it. They
Yeah.
will escort you and told you will be shot down.
Right. Now the reason on the surface, stop me if I'm wrong, but the surface reason for this, the one that's publicly, out there, is there's a treaty that says no nation will take over Antarctica. And
It's
that's
a,
why they keep private planes from going there.
it was a treaty done in 1959. The
Uh-huh.
Antarctic Treaty was signed in Washington, and it's
Okay.
the only treaty where everybody agrees.
There's something weird about that, bro. For Antarctica, and
Can
there's
you
resources down there.
can you fly over Antarctica? Short answer is no. It's not legal to fly over Antarctica. Now people put in to go down there, but they just get to go to stations. I've heard from whistleblowers. I think one of them was on Sean Ryan's show, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard him.
He was like a maintenance guy down there.
Yeah.
He had keys to the whole place, and he was talking all kinds of crazy stories.
He did talk all kinds of crazy stories. He talked about a lot of advanced technology that was being tested and used down there, like the kind of shit that detects UFOs.
Oh
But
yeah, they
that was really, it was really entertaining to listen to. It was really good, juicy information if you're of that mindset. Um, I don't know how much he could, substantiate anything, but um,
he
it
was a
would probably be
whistleblower.
foolish to ignore it.
He was a whistleblower.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He had a lot to say. That was an interesting. It's a really interesting story that this guy puts out there. And if you're interested in the topic of what's going on in Antarctica and UFOs and secret government projects, like this guy was dropping all kinds of stuff.
I'm trying to just get there right now. I think that was Brandon Fugel, but you're looking around like episode. Oh, that wasn't it. Oh, here it is. Episode 66 for the Sean Ryan show. Eric Heckler, Antarctica firefighter for Raytheon, exposes scary earthquake weapons. That
Mm.
was what that was. Now we're just going to segue right now. Bro, I sent it to you. I've listened to both of them. He's new. Sean Ryan's newest person he has on is Sean Webb. They speak about CIA fund remote viewing. And they
You
get
did
in,
send it to me. I got
yeah,
mostly through that first episode.
yeah, all about the Monroe Institute.
Mm-hmm.
Um, bro, when we get out, I don't want to talk openly here, but it was like I found it fucking crazy, dude. I was finding it
The topic
crazy.
of remote viewing.
Yeah, because I always have that weird part of my military thing with intelligence, like going to take me in. And it was just like it kind of like hit me when he was describing part of it on that program,
Uh-huh.
like how they do it, and it was like flashing me back to basic training, like you're doing these really weird tests.
Yeah.
That's when I got picked up right after that. And to be not enlisted, to be not invited. They wanted me to join in the intelligence
Yeah,
section.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I was
So
very
yeah, this is
fascinated.
a young 18-year-old Marine, Jim Pine,
Yes,
uh, who was being recruited by the military intelligence, to serve in their section. But
yes.
what'd you do, Agent Pine? What'd you do when military intelligence said, "Come work with us"?
I said no. And it's like I wanted to do it so bad, but I was so scared because
Hmm.
it was like so intense. The interviews and shit were like so intense. I wanted to say yes, but I was so scared.
Hmm.
And I said no. And then I got punished for it when I got back. They were like, what? They're like, what the fuck? They were so mad at me, dude. My drone instructors and shit. They were so mad at me.
Why? Because someone from their class could have got a prestigious enrollment or
They
something.
were like, dude, that's what you want. I was 18. I didn't know any better. You
Yeah.
know, that they're like, that's what you like, dude. That's the greatest. What are you talking? Like, it was the greatest job they were talking
So they
about.
were just pissed because you missed an opportunity within the military.
Yes. And yeah, they punished me for it. Um,
Let's go, dumbass.
oh yeah. I remember being like, fuck, dude, I should have said yes. This is worse. Like this physical punishment. But I don't think it was. I think I did the right choice. Even though I will always have these weird thoughts about all that.
Yeah, yeah. Because I don't know if we talked about it on this show before, but I think we understand you have a level of psychic about you, and um, those tests aren't just aptitude tests and intelligence tests. Those are personality tests, psychological exams, and they found something in you that they wanted to harness for themselves. Now your instincts have been along the lines of this remote viewing, hasn't it? Isn't that why this was so fascinating to you?
Possibly. Like, I'm not exactly sure. That's the thing. Like, it's all speculation. So I just know that like it really. I was like, whoa. Like, it really hit me on like the way they do these initial tests for remote viewing to see if people have any, because everybody has psychic abilities. It's just what level do you have?
Yeah.
The abilities or access to the abilities. And that's what like really stimulated me when he started describing some of these things I had to go through it. I was like, whoa, dude, that's wild. That's really tickling a memory.
Yeah.
That might not have had to do with remote viewing. It might have just been some other way to see if you have psychic, if there's anything they could use.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that what the stories you sent, it was interesting because you have the Central Intelligence Agency and military intelligence, things like that, are using psychics to project their consciousness to other parts of the world and spy, essentially. Like they talked about one of the more successful remote viewers who would project his consciousness, and he's the guy who saw the Red October submarine before it was seen by satellites.
Isn't it
They're good stories. It's really interesting. Maybe that guy should check Antarctica.
Joseph McMonagle?
Joseph McMonagle was the
It's yeah, and it's McMoneagle. McMon Eagle. Joseph McMonagle is the number one remote viewer. Not that he's the best, he happens to be the best that they talk about, but he was the first one to ever go through it. He's taken from the army, taken to the Monroe Institute, and then he starts going through training at the Monroe Institute, which is done by Robert Monroe, I believe is his name.
yeah. That's
Um,
not military. That's a private institution that explores consciousness. Isn't that what that is?
yeah, private institution that's funded by the CIA. I mean, like these guys
All right.
are
So
tied
if
to
they weren't at
intelligence.
first, they've been co-opted since.
Well, yeah. Well, no, when you go looking to like, oh, we need funding to do these projects, somebody's got to pay for them.
Uh huh.
And then when you get the military involved, they're like, well, there's practical application to that. So yeah, we'll fund that because now we have access to the funding.
All
Now
right.
we
So
have
the
access to the results of what happens, and we want to look into doing that, but we can't do that as the military. So the CIA funds it, helps fund the Monroe Institute.
so the Monroe Institute is not some good guys exploring consciousness for the sake of mankind. They're something else.
Probably both. It's people that
Ah,
are
there it is again.
it's people
Nice.
trying to explore consciousness, but at the same time, you're going to have people that are trying to exploit this thing. They try to exploit, exploring consciousness.
Yeah,
And
good
what
one.
is consciousness? And I'm going to tell you right now, that episode with Rogan was really, it's a good one to listen to with Brian, the Brian character I just said earlier. It really is. I thought it was an excellent interview. Brian Maresca, 2024, 2047 episode. Because they also discuss consciousness a lot, because they're talking
Hmm.
about these different plants and different things you can do, and it's really, really interesting episode that covered so many areas. But
It sounds good.
I'm
I mean, what I heard
backtracking.
sounds good. The rest, I'm sure, sounds good too.
Yeah, I'm backtracking. Well, Rogan's very interested in those things anyway, and I'm a big fan of consciousness and discussions on it, and the layers and levels of what consciousness is. And is it in the mind? Is it in the brain? Is it in the, where is this place? And the more they find out, the more they're like, yeah, it's not in the brain. This is some other thing. This is like
Yeah.
outside of the brain. Seems to be like some type of computer that operates with the consciousness. But it's not consciousness. Consciousness stands outside of it.
Yeah, I love those exercises that ask you to ask yourself, am I my body? Well, let me observe my body. Let me observe the breathing, the heartbeat. Well, if I'm observing the body, that must not be what is observing. You do the same thing for your thoughts. Am I my thoughts? Thoughts just come to you, and you observe the thought arise. You observe the thought dissipate. You observe yourself getting stuck thinking the same thought again and again. But as the observer of your thoughts, suddenly you know you're not your thoughts, and you could just keep playing this game like deeper and deeper and deeper. And at the end of the day, you also ultimately just have this observer, this base level of consciousness that it can think and create ideas and create thoughts and invent handy things like wheels. But you're if you could observe it, you're not it. Is the premise of the thought experiment. You could observe your mind, you're not your mind. You could observe the thoughts arise, you're not your thoughts. And how you progress that line of inquiry, that's a person to person thing. How deep can you go? But it's a great line of inquiry.
Well, that's where meditation, well, concentration is what you first spoke of. That's where that all comes in, like learning how to concentrate, which is just thinking deeply. That's what concentration means, to think
Mm.
deeply upon things or something. Meditation is to think deeply upon things that are in spiritual in nature, or with that spiritual twist, we'll call it. You have to add that in to go from concentration to meditation. Well,
Yeah,
well,
I'm glad you break that down because someone said to me once, meditate on peace. It's like, well, I thought meditation was like not thinking about something, but
mm-mm.
the task meditate on peace is exactly what you're saying. Meditation is thinking deeply on spiritual matters, and that's a really, really fantastic summary.
Yeah, and not to like just have a, there's levels to meditation. It's not like, oh, you reached it. There's levels to it, because you could, it's really, meditation isn't about thinking about nothing. It's about thinking about, usually you try to find one thing to focus on
Mm.
as the bring back, because you're going to leave the meditation, go back into the brain or the mind. It's going to think
Hmm.
about the trash truck you just heard. And then you go, no, we're thinking about, you could, thinking about what it would feel like to have peace in the
Hmm.
world. Like, what would this feel like? And then you go back to that again. And that would be meditation, not concentration. You use concentration in meditation, but there's a
Hmm.
difference. Concentration is different than meditation. It lacks the spiritual quality, or things about the spiritual nature, or things of
Yeah.
that nature. Yes. So that's the difference. But that's how you experience it. Now you can do these plants that we spoke about. That will jump your consciousness. That opens doors to perception. We spoke about this maybe even last week or the week before.
Yeah, it was last week because of the Gavin Newsom thing.
Yeah. And but you can also do it through the siddhis, through breathing techniques, pranayama, which is just breath control or breath work. Siddhis are something you reach when they're special powers that they talk about in Sanskrit and
No.
Hinduism. And these are these yogic powers, levitation, invisibility, to teleport or go from one place to another.
Yeah,
Not,
yeah. Bilocation, telekinesis,
yes.
telepathy.
It's to not eat, not have to drink, not have to eat, not like you, these are these siddhis, these are these special abilities you can reach uh through very, very deep practice, very deep practice. Okay, so this guy practices for 10,000 hours of how to levitate, the monk.
Mhm.
And then he's like, and he says to the other monk, he's like, I can levitate over that water. I don't have to pay for the boat. I don't have to go on the boat. I'm just going to levitate. He's like, oh, okay. The other monk's like, yeah, but it's only 5 cents. Like the boat ride, like you wasted all that time. Like
10,000 hours.
I'm just paying a nickel. I get over. Like, and that just to make light of it all, because it's really, these are powerful things. This is what happens when you explore Kundalini. We've mentioned that before. When you get into these realms, man, you're playing with powerful energies that don't always belong in this third dimension. If the container can't hold it, it'll blow it up.
It's a stark warning and worth hearing.
Fuck
You
yeah,
know,
it is.
because a lot of people warn about the dangers of Kundalini yoga and things like that. But
It sounds ridiculous. I remember when I thought it sounded ridiculous. I'm like, what? You do
what, the
breath
warning?
work? Yeah, we can do some breath fucking work, some pranayama, and that's like dangerous.
Mm.
It's like, oh yeah, fully. That's how powerful breathing is for humans. Like when you do it with intention, you can awaken things. In Kundalini, they're saying you're awakening the serpent in your sacral, your first chakra. And then that's like, once that awakens, it can unfortunately blow out your other chakras as it
Well,
like
yeah,
raises.
they refer to it as an energy. I mean, the serpent isn't like a literal snake. It's like an energetic energy represented by a snake, and it travels up your spine, but it's basically enhanced energy. Like you've gone from 110 watts to 220.
Mm-hmm.
And if your house is wired for 220, then great. Now you're running on 220. If your house is not wired for it, but you're still wired for 110, you're going to burn everything out.
Yeah. Now you're back to candles.
So, yeah, but think about it from a person's perspective. Like, what is that? How does that manifest? Is that a psychotic episode? Is that a split from reality? Do you go crazy? It's something like that.
It could be a lot of different things, everywhere from schizophrenia to not much. It can be like super intense because you're scrambling the brain. Because what happens is just like the caduceus, the staff, and then you have the serpent that is going around the staff.
I think there's two, but
there's two.
But the
They
staff
still
is
are
the
going
Kundalini,
around.
and the
No,
two snakes are.
The staff is your spine. And then the Kundalini is at the Ida and the Pingala. That's the two energies.
Mhm.
Ida is the female energy. The Pingala is the male energy. And when they're awakened, so it's not this, like I said, serpent. It's not like it's just, it has nothing. This is all esoteric talk for energies. And this is what they call it. And it's when that male and that female energy intertwine, they wrap around like the caduceus, your spine, and then arrive at the medulla oblongata at the base of your cranium. That's the top of your spine. And at that point, it then awakens and ignites your pineal gland, which is the pine cone, small little gland in your head that's referred to as the third eye, and then will go out through your crown chakra. That's when everything is in containment. Like all your chakras are aligned. It can contain this power, and that's when it would work beautifully.
Great summary. Summary.
Yeah.
And if your chakras are misaligned, as if you're carrying psychological problems or you're not developed spiritually, or however you want to phrase it, that's when that energy traveling up your spine will take a detour and cause trouble.
Yeah, blows out that chakra generally and then doesn't go any higher. And then you will have a problem or disruption in that chakra. It's very easy to picture it in a physical manner of just like you said earlier, like, oh, this chakra, whatever the number is, that's where the wiring isn't correct and can't handle those 220 volts of power. And then now it's over, like a Christmas lights. But it's can be dangerous. And it's not like you're good or you're bad or any of that. That's how preparation is literally, they write the path in Hinduism, but it's not that they have their own words for how to do it. But it's through the Yamas and the Niyamas is what they call it. And it's the things that you're going to avoid in life and the things you're going to cultivate. And they have these like lists of them, and they're actually all pretty dope,
Yeah, man.
That's the start of how do you prepare? How do you prepare your body for this, Jim? Oh, through living a good life, through living like a harmonious life. That's like the first important part. It's like you got to prep the soil, and that's live a good, harmonious life.
Yeah, don't do evil shit.
Avoid evilness. It would be, yeah, instead of don't do, because the universe is you got to use better words. It's the
Yeah, yeah.
avoid. You're actually focused on avoiding this, not don't do this. Because
Or
don't
just what
do
you
it.
said, live a good life.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
throw in this caveat of don't do evil shit because a lot of people think they live a good life. They go to church on Sunday and then they'll screw you over in business on Monday. But I think your statement maybe it needed a little clarification or a little extra because of the culture we live in.
No,
But at the end
because
of
of
the day, live a
language.
good life.
Because of language is the only reason I corrected you. You don't want to say don't do, because that's do not do. The universe doesn't understand do not do. When you say do not do evil shit, the only thing you can picture is you picture evil shit. And you're like, don't do
Yeah.
that. But the universe doesn't see that. It only sees your mind eye like evil shit, even though you're thinking don't do that evil stuff. So that's why you say avoid it. And when you picture avoid evil stuff, you don't picture evil stuff. You avoid, you're moving before it.
Well,
You
no, you know what? And honestly, when you say avoid evil stuff, I think crossing the street or something like that.
sure.
That's why I say I like your statement of live a good life, because
Yes.
that when I hear live a good life, I think like, oh, maybe I'm helping people, or maybe I'm building stuff or something like that. But yeah, but that's a great starting point. Live a good life, and you even had a second one teed up to go. Something else like, how do I prepare my vessel for these energies? Live a good life is a good starting point. What else you got?
Well, that's because I brought up these two words, yama and niyama. That's Sanskrit, but it's once again, it's things you're gonna like. There's one section, the yamas. That's things you're gonna cultivate.
Mm-hmm.
The niyamas. Hold on, I should probably get this right. Um, it's just like a moral code. Like one section is like these are things you're gonna avoid, and the other section's like, oh, this is not like these are the things we're gonna cultivate because there's a big difference. Um and what are like the five yamas are ahimsa, that means non-violence. So that means you're going to avoid violence. Satya is truthfulness. Astya is non-stealing. Brahmacharya is abstinence. And aparigraha, that's non-accumulation. So it's like you don't want to collect too many, whatever. That's what do we call that in the seven deadly sins? That's when you hoard everything, greed. And I just did the yamas. What are the five niyamas? Saucha, that's cleanliness. Santosha, contentment. See, these are the things you're cultivating. Tapas, self-discipline. Svadhyayaha, self-reflection. And Ishtivada pranahana, and that's surrendering to a higher power. That's observing that there's more to this whole thing. And that I just said them. You can look up not a yama and niyama. Niyama is just Niyama, and there are these Hindu codes, these moral codes they came up with, and it's the list of things you want to avoid and the things you want to cultivate.
Bro, this has been so great. We went from ancient civilizations to catastrophe to Antarctica to remote viewing to consciousness to how do I prepare my vessel for a higher spiritual energetic experience. This role, I fucking dig it. I dig it. That was a lot of Sanskrit words you just dropped on us. I followed as best I could. I get the heart of the message though. You know, do the right thing, avoid this, promote that. It's a fantastic. It's incredible that we have this roadmap that you could take something as simple as your breathing, follow the roadmap to do it correctly, and you can wildly change your life for the better. You could enter into a spiritual existence just by breath and following some good advice.
Yes, yeah. The Hindus really nailed it. That they really nailed it. It's a beautiful religion that gets very scientific in the way that if you do things in a certain way, this is the certain results you'll get. I know this stuff because I went to school for Ayurveda and then studied with a Swami for 4 years in New Jersey. And that's where I learned about this beautiful religion that's really helped me. I am definitely not a Hindu. And just because I would never want to claim that I am, because it's a whole naming right and it's part of a religion, and I don't want to disrespect the religion, but I definitely am thankful for all the information I learned, because it's thorough. This stuff is fucking thorough, bro. And it's nice because it covers probably what we should be teaching in school, but it covers these basic things that then lead you into the yogas, which that's where you once you just live this good life, and then through devotion, and then you can do all these other things and really go crazy to the point where you can have special powers, cities, bro. Let's fucking go,
Yeah, man. And let's get to yoga in a second. You had just described meditation as thinking deep on spiritual matters. You have also given me a really basic breakdown of what yoga is. I know we don't have a whole lot of time left, but give me a quick sum of that so we can round out a literal path for people to change their lives if they choose to do it. So we got breath and these guidance on how to act while doing this business. And then we've got this yoga coming up after. What do you say about that?
Well, yeah, when I'm saying yoga, I'm not talking about your mom's yoga, going to class after she drops the kids off at school. I'm talking about yoga as the this large part of what Hinduism is like. They used yoga, and yoga is the word means huge. It means to link. It's about linking. You use yoga to link to what? Higher power. They have God's names, but you could do this in regular life and link to whatever you believe in. It's higher power. The hopefully is some light stuff, not crazy. But they have different parts. There's bhakti yoga, there's karma yoga, there's raja yoga, there's jnana yoga. Bhakti yoga is devotion. That's like where you just in life you're going to do these devoted things. It could be like the religion, devoting yourself to like that religion or spiritual practice you have, and really humbling yourself. And then it's also devotion to like doing good deeds and charity and like feeling your place in the world in a devoted way. Not what am I getting, what do I get out of this? It's like, no, that's not devotion. Devotion's like when you just give yourself over. So that's bhakti yoga. Karma yoga is it's like what gets into karma, but it's like karma yoga is more about living your life. Then you get into bhakti yoga and raja yoga, and that's when you get into deep meditations. That's when you start getting into like these deep places. Hatha yoga is hatha is partly karma and partly bhakti. And yeah, that's what yoga is.
And what was yana?
Jnana yoga is enlightenment, but it's using all the other yogas to try to attain enlightenment. But enlightenment's just a place you can reach, not something that happens in your.
Oh, okay, so but jnana yoga is like a combining of those other disciplines.
Yeah, let me go back to karma yoga because I did a horrible job saying it. It's spiritual liberation. It is the rightful actions without being attracted to the fruits. It's that's where you have one, it's devotion, and this is one that's not about devotion, it's about doing the right thing. That's karma yoga. So you just asked about jnana yoga, or were you doing jnana yoga? And that's the four classical yogas. It's the path of knowledge. It's the path of self-realization. That's what jnana ends. That's the last, because all the other ones you're working up to have this self-realization or to have this spiritual progression.
Okay.
You're doing all these other parts to try to attain that part. So you're doing the Raja. Raja is like meditating. That's that action now. Instead of just living your life good, now you're really starting to focus. And that's where Raja, that's where you're going to go into your meditations. Through the Raja, you can attain the jnana.
Okay. And did you tell me that you do the exercises like in the Western yoga classes, you do those exercises that you could do the sitting meditation?
The Western yoga that you were talking about, that's just hatha yoga. They're not listed in the four.
Are you doing that training of the body so that you can do the other?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. Yeah. What what hatha yoga is, they don't really do it here that way. They kind of end the class that way, but yeah, the whole idea is to prepare the body so the body can sit for long periods of time in meditation, so it's not disturbed by the body, and then you can reach these parts of jnana, where you're going to have self-realization, is what the idea would be. That's the way they discuss it. Hatha, once again, is bhakti. I'm sorry, it's bhakti. I said karma, but I was wrong. It's bhakti and raja. It's a mix of devotion, because you're doing these worshipful postures and devotion to these beings, whatever the posture is, if it's a god or if it's an animal. And that's so you can now, that's the way they do it in hatha. But you don't really, it's going to be sitting, like you just said.
Yeah.
That's where trying to get out of movement, trying to cut all your senses down, so then you can see how far you can get into that concentration or the consciousness, like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, that series of questions.
Yeah.
If I could observe my body, am I my body? If I could observe my mind, am I my mind?
Mm-hmm.
Those are it's a great exercise. It's a great awareness exercise. It's a great practice for understanding what consciousness is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it frees you from things like identifying with your thoughts, because the thoughts that come into our minds, if you take the time to observe your mind, you might see all kinds of weirdly random shit come to your mind. You might see dark shit come to mind. You might see any number of things pop into your head as thoughts. But if you take the time to observe that process of a thought entering your mind, and you could disidentify with the thought and understand that you're not your thoughts, that frees you from a lot of bad behavior. Because if you tell yourself, well, man, I think that way, so I'm just going to be that way, those thoughts that you identify with sometimes can be very destructive. And if you understand that you're not your thoughts, it can free you from any weird sense of, any misplaced sense of identification with those thoughts of how you should behave.
Yeah, I mean, public service announcement, you're not your thoughts. But with that said, you are your thoughts. So,
well, what does that mean? I don't know that I
because
understand where you're coming from.
Free will. Like, who am
What do
I
you mean
to
you
tell
are
people?
Your thoughts?
Who am I to tell people they can't be their thoughts? You know what I mean? Like,
oh, that's someone's choice. They can choose whatever they want. I'm with you. I'm not going to tell someone how to think.
Well, I just said the PSA is like, hey, you're not your thoughts. But I'm also going to recognize, like, no, you can be your thoughts if you want, you know?
That's your freedom to do so. I agree with you on that. I don't want to be the thought police. I don't want to tell people what to think or how to act. I just want to offer some, what I think is good information. It's like, hey, chew on this for a second. Think about it and tell me what you think.
Yeah. Well, if you're listening to this program, I'm sure they've already reached that part within. Hopefully, you're starting to learn, if you haven't, like, you're not your thoughts. This is just a radio. And the better you get at controlling the radio, the better you can get at tuning things out and realizing, like, oh, this is just distractions coming in. These thoughts, these things, worry, all these things can just stumble into your thoughts, but you're not those. You definitely are not, man. You're well beyond that. If you want to be.
It's an interesting environment we live in, though.
Yeah.
That the radio is receiving thoughts as if they're frequencies. And just by having your consciousness, you can perceive all these different thoughts. And what you tune into and relate to is really, really important. Because the whole spectrum of thoughts are out there, from good to bad to ugly and everything in between.
Oh, yeah, I'm trying to get out of this. We ended on a good note. Now we're still going. We're getting out of this right now. We're going to probably talk about Havana syndrome next, where the government's created weapons that can get into your thoughts. And and Stanley Kubrick and this. I'm just going to say the thing. This is what we're getting out of here, people. We're out of here.
Yeah, no, it's been a great conversation. I'm so happy to have kept it positive. But what's this business you're looking at there?
I just got to get to it. Let's see. Where is she? Not there. Dude, we're going to talk about Stanley Kubrick's quotes. Stanley Kubrick said, pedophiles run the world, claims Nicole Kidman. This article that we
Nice.
just found that Nicole Kidman's like, oh yeah, he told me that all the higher ups, it's a whole satanic pedophile ring.
Oh, bro, and Stanley's so deep in it, was so deep in it. Just look at Eyes Wide Shut, but we're going to talk about Eyes Wide Shut too when we talk about Stanley Kubrick.
Later, everybody. Have a great day.
Love you all.